All right. Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this month's edition of Kupuna Caucus. And it's just me this month because Senator Moriwaki is not in range of a computer. So we will take the reins and run with it and continue on with their business. And so I think we have a great presentation in store for us today. But first, I wanted to introduce some of my colleagues who are on the call. We see Rep Sayama. Thanks for joining, Rep Sayama. Good to see you. Looking good. We have Senator Misalucha. Thanks for joining us, Senator.
Aloha. Hey, I won't put on my video, okay, because I'm eating lunch. Sorry.
Okay, yeah, you eat your lunch. That's important. And we have Representative Takayama, which is his birthday today. So be sure to wish Representative Takayama a happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. Thank you all very much, Troy. Just for the record, even though I'm 69 today, I don't feel a day over 65.
Very good, very good. Yeah, no, Rep Takayama and I were talking about just some of the results of this past legislative session, and I think our Crimes Against Seniors bill that was passed is already being used throughout the community with a few crimes that happened in downtown. And so I think that is some progress that we are, good progress to see. And especially because I think we were big partners with the prosecutors. I think they knew how to use this bill and use it as a tool in their favor. So I think that's a very good thing. And so I think as we continually move ahead to think of things in this next legislative session on what we would like to push, I think those are the kind of things we need to start thinking about of what are the big issues that we are going to pursue this year. And we want to, again, have time to think about, make sure that we talk about it and think about all the things that and stakeholders we need to talk to push it forward. So if you have any ideas, I think we're open to taking those ideas early so we can start working on them. So without further ado, we have a great presentation today from Bert Lum, who is the Broadband Strategy Officer for the state of Hawaii. And I think broadband, as you all know, is a very hot topic. And so I think it'll be very good to hear from Bert and what he's doing with his HUI and whatever he's doing to move broadband throughout the state. I think there's a lot of broadband investment that's happening through the federal government. I think, we're looking at it via a core infrastructure lens. I think that's exciting because at the end of the day, I think a lot of our lives, we can't imagine living our daily lives without the possibility of having broadband. And I think we need to look at it and making sure that those who are underserved also have access. So Bert, want to turn it over to you to see what you have to say about the issue and give us the latest and greatest.
Aloha, everybody. Mahalo, Rep Hashimoto. I appreciate your assuming that it's a great presentation that I have in store, but I'll leave you folks the ability to reserve comments until after I make the presentation. Hopefully it'll still be great 1 hour from now. So, and then happy birthday, Rep Takayama. I'm glad there's somebody older than me on this call. Okay, so with that, I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen and go through. And I just put together maybe eight or so slides, and I am very much interested in any of your questions that might come up as a result of the presentation. So let's see. Okay. Okay, can you guys all see that?
Yes.
All right, so my name is Bert Lum, and I'm the Broadband Strategy Officer here in DBED, and we recently got the broadband office set up. This is the Hawaii Broadband and Digital Equity Office as a result of HB 1191. And we've been, hard at work with the broadband for, well, I started in 2018, and it sort of kicked into high gear in March of 2020, when we all had to pretty much shelter in place. And lot of the work that has taken place over the course of the last, this past Wednesday was 75 weeks, consecutive weeks that we've been meeting with the broadband Hui. So lots of things have happened over the course of the last 75 weeks, and I'll try to do a quick encapsulation of that. Nope, let's see. Okay, so just to give you an idea, March 2020, we first convened the broadband Hui, and at that point in time, what I was trying to do was get a level set on what was being offered, primarily to students, because they were all now having to stay at home, and there was a program that came out with the FCC called Keep Americans Connected, and both Charter and Hawaiian Telecom were participants. And so what I did was I called together a gathering of the carriers as well as members of the DOE and other schools, and try to identify what are some of the challenges and what are some of the gaps that exist, and what are some of the resources out there that could help address that.
To give her to like that Dorothy.
Looks like there's a couple people on the. If you guys could mute your mics, that would be great. So what we did was we met on that first Wednesday, and I committed to having weekly meetings until a lot of the issues that we were encountering were resolved. And that was kind of a big undertaking, realizing that there's still an existing digital divide across the entire country. And as the weeks rolled by, we added people onto the broadband Hui, and this was largely due to just interested parties, stakeholders. We went from the fixed broadband providers to the wireless. So we have all the wireless carriers on. We have representation across this sort of interconnecting puzzle, which extends from education to telehealth to rural communities to economic development in the form of digital economy and remote work, issues around digital equity. And so this broadband Hui has grown from, I think the initial meeting we had something like maybe 20 or 25. And over the course of the last 75 weeks, our mailing list is probably close to 390. And we typically, like this past week, our attendance on the broadband Hui was about 80 folks. So it's a good representation. And again, it covers a span of topics, everything from, the big pipes coming in, whether it's trans-Pacific fiber and cable landings, to things like how do we do, well, maybe I should move to the next slide and we could talk about that. In terms of connectivity, the fact that, we've been meeting for 75 weeks, one of the things that I try to help do is get people to understand all the connectivity issues that get from trans-Pacific all the way to rural connectivity. And so one of the things I like to, bring up is the Hawaii Broadband Strategic Plan, which we issued back in, I think, October of 2020, which states that we want to, these are the 4 overarching goals: ensure robust broadband infrastructure to all Hawaii residents, expand digital inclusion and adoption to achieve digital equity, enable Hawaii to thrive in the digital economy, and to strengthen community resilience through broadband. So these are the kind of the 4 overarching goals for the broadband strategic plan. And then in the course of the convening of the broadband Hui, we kind of, got together and asked ourselves, what is it that we want to achieve? Because this is like, this is probably like summertime of last year. And we sort of brainstormed around what is the real objective of the broadband Hui. And one of the things that kind of came up was the idea of achieving this this digital equity across the entire population. So we chose that as our kind of our guiding star. And what we collectively did was we developed something called the Digital Equity Declaration. And I'll go into a little bit more detail as to what exactly that is. We came up with a kind of a slogan, which was broadband for all. And the all stands for access, literacy, and livelihood. And in this particular diagram, I try to break it down to what constitutes access, what constitutes literacy, and what constitutes livelihood. And of course, the access piece is primarily things like, how do you get access to the broadband? Whether it's, at the time we had a nonprofit called Hawaii Kids Can, did Wi-Fi on wheels. How do we map or how do we identify these underserved areas? How can we build some community networks that help service communities that were sort of disenfranchised and outside the normal deployment of fiber by the telephone and cable company. And community networks, I mean, these are examples of what we were able to do over at Puhonua, Waimanalo, and Puhonua o Waianae. Infrastructure like cable landings and how do we enable a robust broadband to further develop the cloud infrastructure, look at wireless spectrum, computers, getting computers in people's hands. What are the carrier programs and things like what is the Lifeline service? So that's a typical kind of breakdown of things like access. And then in the literacy column, we looked at digital assessments, and we all recognize that digital literacy is a key component of being able to fully use the technology that we are looking at deploying, whether it's internet access or getting access to hardware. You have to have this digital literacy competence, but you have to also have an assessment to establish a baseline. So our digital assessment is an attempt to get people to take an assessment and then it be a baseline so that we can measure against how well we're doing in achieving a digital equity goal for the entire state of Hawaii. So that's digital assessment. Computer science and education. That's we supported a bill that went through the legislature and got computer science as a requirement in K through 12. We have workforce development programs, and I spoke about computer literacy. And there are programs now, as a course of our convening that involve people actually doing classes as a result of putting together not only the class, but having the outlets like the community colleges to actually deliver computer literacy classes into the community. So that is actually underway right now. And then on the livelihood side, livelihood is really, what is it that you do in your everyday life that really leverages the internet? And if you think about it, just about everything we do has some element of needing to be connected to the internet. So whether it's the economy or distance learning or telehealth or remote work, all of these things are part of our everyday life, and that's the livelihood piece. And I strongly believe from an economic development standpoint, if Hawaii is going to be competitive going forward into the 21st century, we're going to be heavily reliant on broadband and the digital economy. And the more people we can have be digitally literate and competitive on the broadband and digital equity or digital economy, the better chance we have of being competitive in the 21st century, given that the rest of the world is also going to be trying to up their game when it comes to digital development of applications and tools and technologies that are going to usher in the 21st century. So when we got together to look at what is it that we want to declare as the Digital Equity Declaration. We kind of came up with this, and you can go to broadbandhui.org and read more detail as to what is in the Digital Equity Declaration. But the declaration compiles the collective priorities articulated through months of thoughtful broadband Hui conversations, and in alignment with the 2020 Hawaii Broadband Strategic Plan, sets a foundation for collective action among private and public sector partners by providing vision and goals that will move Hawaii toward a more equitable digital future. This declaration is a call to address this critical need by advancing the following three pillars of the digital equity, and that goes back to what I had mentioned earlier: access, literacy, and livelihood. So we issued the declaration, and state legislatures passed the resolution recognizing it, along with the counties, Big Island, Maui, Honolulu, and Kauai. And so I think it's widely accepted, and now we just gotta, we've set our course, and we are moving, in this direction. Okay, so when we think about digital, digital equity and broadband for all, what are some of the things that are actually happening? And I wanted to kind of give you a sense of some of the activities that are currently going on. And again, what I tried to do is, and I have my colleagues here from the Kupuna community, especially folks like Audrey from AARP, and what we're trying to do from a broadband Hui standpoint is look at addressing keiki to kupuna. So whatever we try to support, we're trying to support across the entire spectrum, but these are applicable to the respective communities that get more specific in terms of the programs that they address for their communities. But in the areas of access, literacy, and livelihood, there's these programs that I am currently supporting the rollout of. Internet access, one of the big projects we just submitted to the NTIA, which is the National Telecommunications and Information Administration, was something from their program called the Broadband Infrastructure Program. And that came out of the Consolidated Appropriations Act, which was signed back in December of 2020 by President Trump. And that was a $288 million competitive grant that all the states were applying for. So we applied. Our submission was due on the 17th of August. So it's still only a couple of weeks that it's been in the hands of the NTIA. And now it is going through the evaluation. So our total submittal was like $19 million. And we have in what we call the covered partnership, which includes Pointel, Charter. We have two wireless ISPs, one named Banyan Networks, and the other one is Sun Global. And so together, that constituted the covered partnership. And we, as the state, are the lead applicant. So we submitted the application. And I think given the fact that we submitted it at the sweet spot of 19 million, the NTIA advised that we look at submitting something between $5 to $30 million. So I gave the objective of, let's see if we can come up with something that gets us somewhere close to 20 million. And that would be our submission. And so that's what we did. And I think we did a great job of demonstrating a couple of things. One is, we were able to get the major carriers, Charter and Hawaiian to both work together to be a part of this covered partnership.
Are you okay?
We also included. You have a question? We also included, the wireless ISPs that they had a specific solution that was not your typical fiber to the home, and then they came up with some wireless solutions specifically for a couple of communities on the Big Island, Ocean View being one of them, and Alehu being another one, which don't typically may not be suitable for fiber to the home. In the case of the folks over at Sun Global, they actually did a proposal that was a wireless network that could help service houseless community on the Big Island in Alehu. So the combination of all of those, I think, strengthen what it is that we submitted as part of our NTIA grant. And so, with fingers crossed, we hope that we can bring that home. Another program that we are in the middle of rolling out is the emergency broadband benefit, and you might have all heard about that. It's the $50 credit off of your internet bill if you qualify, and we launched that. It's an FCC program. The total sum of money was something like $3.2 billion, but the entire country was qualified to apply for this if you were a SNAP recipient or free or reduced lunch or were unemployed, during the period of 2020. So if you were able to show any of those documentations on the National Verifier, which is a FCC site, you could qualify for the emergency broadband benefit. And as of this last, was it Sunday? Let's see, what's the latest count? Here we go. So we get weekly updates on how all the states are doing with the EBB, and as of last Sunday, we're at 10,508. So pretty good. And keep in mind, if you look at the 10,000 households at $50 off, and you kind of do a quick, over the course of the last 3 or 4 months, we went from like 7,000, 8,000, now we're at 10,005. And you multiply it out by $50 a month, we have been able to at least realize more than $1 million of benefit for Hawaii. And if you wonder, like, how much did we spend to actually get this show on the road? We actually only did it with a small purchase, about $15,000 to do some collateral in terms of marketing and outreach collateral, and then we really leveraged the broadband hui to get the word out to all the nonprofits on the frontline workers that would get the word out to their respective communities. So, that's how we got the word out, and I'm proud to say that we broke the 10,000 mark, and have been able to bring in more than $1 million to Hawaii. We have there's always a need for computers, and oftentimes when our folks are doing digital literacy assessments or classes, oftentimes the participant says, hey, I don't even have a computer at home. I really want to learn this stuff, and the class is great, but when I go home, I don't have anything to use. And so we hooked up with a nonprofit called Hawaiian Hope, and they are able to provide refurbished hardware. So we put together a program where we could actually purchase hardware from Hawaiian Hope, something to the tune of like $150 a laptop. And these laptops are, like I said, refurbished by Hawaiian Hope, and then we are able to get that distributed to participants who have a need. And this is something that even anybody in the business of connecting Kupuna could definitely take advantage of. I just put down Lifeline service because we want to bring attention to Lifeline service and issues around adoption and affordability. Just kind of quickly moving on, we have this whole area of digital literacy, and I mentioned, some of the classes that are already underway. So we have digital literacy classes, computer literacy classes, digital assessments. We have a program that's still in its early stage, but looking at creating a talent pool of digital navigators, that can help go out and assist people in getting online. We work closely with the folks over in the telehealth sector, and one of our participants, she's part of JABSOM, John A. Burton School of Medicine, and she's developed the Telehealth 101. And so when they go out and do kind of a telehealth 101 overview, oftentimes it's kind of coupled up with our digital literacy classes. And so that way it addresses both the digital literacy piece as well as the telehealth, which relies on of course digital literacy, right? And so that that's a good kind of a coupling. And then we're also looking at ways of developing a technical support. Hawaiian Hope also provides much of that technical support. So if they give out hardware, they can help anybody that might have questions about the hardware. And of course, moving on to the livelihood piece, we've talked about this. You got the digital economy, remote work, digital distance learning, access to healthcare. And I know Audrey's online, and Audrey and I both worked on the age-friendly cities. So a lot of what we try to emphasize is the fact that all of this broadband has kind of like the foundational infrastructure that we need when it comes to livelihood. Okay, so we're getting close to the end of the presentation. The key thing that I wanted to emphasize, especially to this group, is that what I just talked about is our pretty much grassroots, organic. We come together, we try to address a number of different things that may be impacting our respective communities. And as I mentioned before, it's keiki to kupuna, so it could run the spectrum of age groups, right? and to be perfectly honest, we depend a lot on these areas of policy coordination and funding. And prior to the presentation, one of the things that we need to figure out is how do we approach all of this in a unified fashion, because it could seem quite like a lot of individual efforts all going off in their own various respective areas. So how do we bring some unified effort around addressing this, with respect to the communities that different organizations are focusing in on, whether it's through the DOE, or whether it's through the university, or whether it's through nonprofits that work on the front line, whether it's health services. How do we approach this in a unified fashion? So in the middle section, the broadband hui has been an attempt to be kind of a clearinghouse for a number of different projects that are all taking place simultaneously. Obviously, part of the broadband hui are nonprofit organizations. You got private industry, many of the government agencies, inclusive of local county government, are participating, as well as community stakeholders. So, again, it's not a mandate in any way, but we do try to be a clearinghouse so that people are able to connect and find some not only common ground but economy of scale in what it is they do, and how to make it available so that it is scalable and not subject to just a one-shot deal. On the left-hand side, you have policy, and whether that's policy at the state level. There's also local legislation on the part of the counties, and federal legislation. And I want to bring your attention to this federal legislation because, in the latest federal funding, which is still moving through Congress. It's called the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. There's a whole section on digital equity, and the whole section on digital equity is a result of something that was called the Digital Equity Act. And what I am also trying to prepare people for is really thinking about what are some of the projects that could get funded in this category of digital equity. So if anybody's interested in looking at, what that might entail, I would recommend looking at the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, and feel free to email me, and I can provide you some pointers. But that section is pivotal because I don't think any time before this legislation did digital equity actually get called out specifically as a section in the legislation. So stay tuned for that. Also on the policy side, I need to add that the Broadband and Digital Equity Office is a fledgling office, and we were able to get legislation passed and statute established, but we were unable to get any funding. So again, it's going to be a challenge because we are operating on pretty much grassroots organizing, volunteer. Much of the projects I talked about are initiated by nonprofits, but from a state standpoint, the Broadband Digital Equity Office is currently unfunded. So that's policy, and then of course, which is directly related to my issue on funding, is that funding sources could be federal funding, and there may be federal funds that could help stand up and support broadband offices. There's obviously state and local funding, and as well as philanthropic. And the philanthropic community has been very much interested in what we've been doing with the broadband HUI. As an example, some of the community networks that we have currently underway have been funded largely not from federal funding, but from philanthropic funding. And as an example, we did one up at the Puhonua, Waimanalo, which was largely funded by the Internet Society. And then the project we're doing to connect fiber to Puhonua Waianae is funded primarily through Internet Society and the Weinberg Foundation. And that was able to bring fiber from the highway over to the parcel in Waianae. And then hardware was also delivered recently. So they're now at the phase of not looking for money. They got the money, and now it's just a matter of installing it and enabling their community to gain access to the wireless network that gets set up at the Waianae. So again, we're bootstrapping a lot of this, and that's kind of where we're at right now. But I did want to emphasize, these three categories of policy, coordination, and funding as being really important, moving forward into 2022 and beyond. That is my last slide. So mahalo everybody for your attention. And if you are interested in more, you can go to broadband.hawaii.gov or also broadbandhui.org. And at this time, I'm happy to answer any questions. And hey, my brother Doug got his hand up. How's it going?
Yeah,
Doug?
I do. Hi, Bird. Nice seeing you again. Hey, I have a question. I'm with Hawaii Meals on Wheels. We see a lot of older people, and it's great that I guess Curtis Cropar, right, Hawaiian Hope, he's getting people these computers. I think it's really great. He's a great guy. My question though is that if you go to these older people's houses, I mean, if you give them a laptop, there's no natural place for them to put it. So I don't think they'll actually use it. They've got to find a place to put it. They've got to remember to use it and stuff. So has there been any effort? They all have phones. They all have iPhones. Has there been an effort really to bypass the whole computer, the laptop part of it, and just do services directly through portable devices, phones and tablets?
Yeah, yeah. So from our hardware standpoint, Hawaiian Hope is primarily getting laptops. So that's why that's the primary kind of hardware that we're distributing. But to your point about for iPads and tablets, the DOE as well as the libraries are getting monies out of the emergency connectivity fund. In the case of the libraries, what they are doing is making them available just like books, right? You borrow them and you got to bring them back. Right now, I don't think Hawaiian Hope has been doing any kind of refurbishing of tablets because those tend to be pretty sealed. So they're kind of only upgraded or maintained by the manufacturer. So most of the tablets that I'm familiar with, those programs tend to be new devices, and there are programs that provide that, but they're pretty much going through, like I said, DOE or the libraries at this stage of the game.
I see. Okay, I'm just thinking that adoption would be a lot greater if the thing were aimed towards tablets and iPhones. I'll make that daring prediction, in fact, now. So much of the services during this lockdown, you had to get online, and our guys, they were in the dark. I mean, we'd have to ask them, oh, are you, if you needed assistance with rent or payment of utilities, you had to get online. If otherwise you're totally in the dark. So we did a lot of phone calling. But anyway, I'll shut up. There are other questions. Thanks for answering the question.
Yeah, no, Doug. I mean, I'll take that as a note because you bring up a great point. I don't, like I said, we've been focusing on laptops because that's what Hawaiian Hope has. But I mean, if I see a program that is more geared to get tablets out into people's hands, that is going broader than just the DOE and libraries, I'll definitely loop you in on that. In fact, I should invite you to the broadband Hui, man.
All right. I see that Rep. Martin has also joined us. Thanks for joining us, Rep. Martin. Appreciate you being here. Any questions for Bert? Questions for Bert? Diane? And then we have followed by Lei. So Diane, go ahead.
Hi. I'm
We'll have
Lei.
Diane first, and then we'll come back to you, Lei.
Oh, okay.
Hi, Bert, I don't know, I'm sorry, I may have missed this, but I understand there's some kind of a pilot for community free Wi-Fi in Kalihi area. Do you know about that? And could you elaborate a little bit?
So there's a couple of things that are happening, and I don't know the actual stage of deployment. There are several sort of free Wi-Fi projects that are underway. So the city and county has their I forget what they're called, hotspots, but the city and county has their version of a hotspot. And then there's another program that is being launched by the Department of Transportation, and that is a Wi-Fi mesh project, and it's a pilot, and it identified 8 communities. Which include Kupuna Caucus.
Albert, you are using the computer audio.
There's also, I think it's Hana on Maui, Kalihi, Waimanalo, Nanakuli, Waianae on Oahu, and Kapa'a on the Big Island. On Kauai. Now that is again, Department of Transportation. They have engaged Hawaiian Tel to develop a wireless mesh network. Kalihi is one of the areas, but in terms of the stage of deployment, and how widespread, Kalihi it might reach, I don't have an answer for you.
Thank you.
So Bert, when you talk about a mesh, so does that take you to an actual building, and then the building has to set that up, or is the intent that you would just get connected for wherever they connect based on Wi-Fi or something?
Well, so my again, I'm not directly involved with the deployment, and again, so some specifics might be more. We could, maybe get Hawaiian Tel to share, but the idea was that the Department of Transportation got some federal highways money,
Right.
and they were looking at connecting light poles to fiber because there's a need for doing smart lighting and cameras and various sensors and IoT and preparing for autonomous vehicles. And so in deploying fiber to light poles, they looked at why not also have wireless service be available. So they engaged Hawaiian Tel, and when it comes to a mesh, the mesh tends to be you can have either one or a couple of different sort of topologies. You can have hub and spoke, so one transmitter and a bunch of receivers, or you can have a mesh where one receiver talks to another receiver, and then you kind of have a daisy chain that tends to be a way of extending the distance that the Wi-Fi can go, and so that's kind of typically the mesh architecture, and that's what they've been talking about. But again, it's about the extent of my understanding of what all they're actually deploying.
Thank you.
Can I just have a quick follow-up question, Representative? This is
Yep. Go
Bennett.
ahead, Senator.
Yeah.
Then we'll go to
So, yeah, and I just wanted to ask Bert if he has any knowledge about how that infrastructure bill, the massive one that is supposedly going to lay out some resources for increasing broadband access to communities. Any idea, or have you had some conversations with our representative, either Case or and then maybe our senators?
Okay, so where it's at right now is that it passed the Senate, it went to the House, it passed through the House. There may be some modifications that they may be doing as a result of the House deliberating on the infrastructure bill, and then it has to get to the president. There's a projection that it'll get to the president sometime at the end of September. So what typically happens is that it gets to the president signs it, and then it goes to the corresponding departments or agencies, like the FCC or the U.S. Commerce or FEMA or whoever, and they all need to review the legislation and look at how they create or structure the program upon which that legislation now gets deployed. And so typically, like, I'll give an example. It takes probably another 3 months before the actual, what they call NOFO, which is Notice of Funding Opportunity, actually comes out. And so, the Consolidated Appropriations Act, which was signed in December, the NTIA broadband infrastructure program that I applied for, which was due in August 17th, the NOFO for that didn't come out till, like, I think it was August. If I backtrack from August, it didn't come out till like May of this year, May 2021. So you got to figure now, it was signed in December. It took probably 4 to 5 months for the NOFO to come out. And once the NOFO comes out, then they have to set a deadline for, when when people need to respond, and that usually, that was kind of another 3 months. So again, Senator, it's still a little ways off before we will see the money from this latest Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. We're still waiting for the NOFO to come out from the American Rescue Plan, which recently was announced that in a category, a specific section called Capital Projects Fund, Hawaii will get $115 million. And that was announced by the Treasury. I think it was on this Wednesday morning. So the $115 million, that was announced, but the actual NOFO for that money, how does the state actually go and get that money, still needs to be issued. And we suspect that will not happen for another couple of weeks.
Okay, but you
I hope
heard
that
that.
answers.
Yes, but a big focus of that infrastructure bill would be broadband, right? I think they were mentioning that. Is that what you've heard as well? Not
Yes.
necessarily just for Hawaii, but for the entire country.
Right. For the category in the Investment Act, Infrastructure Investment Act. I'm looking at my papers right here. Grants for states for broadband deployment in that particular infrastructure investment is $40 billion, $40 billion. So that's a good sum of money.
Well, yeah, hopefully we get a trickle of it here at least. And
Right.
not just to lay out new infrastructure, but even to strengthen the existing infrastructure, because sometimes our broadbands or our access is slow, or our what do you call that? Internet.
Right.
Hey,
And
can
then
I
in the
ask you?
category of
Go ahead.
in the category of I mentioned digital equity. In that Infrastructure Investment Act, there's going to be like $2.75 billion for digital equity.
Wow, that's fantastic. Can I just ask a quick one, and this is it. I'm done. Bert, do you mind sharing a little bit about how you were saying earlier how the broadband Hui has been, the approach has been to broadly touch upon from Keiki to Kupuna, but there seems to be an organic desire to focus also on just Kupuna issues by itself, because as you know, some of those needs are unique, and there's some agencies who have actually started to band together to have conversations as to how to address some of those unique needs of Kupunas. Do you mind sharing a little bit about that effort and where you sit as far as that effort is concerned?
I'm happy to, and I see Audrey has turned her camera on. What we encourage in the Broadband Hui is that we try to identify sort of initiators and create subgroups. And Audrey from ARP has kind of led the discussion around Kupuna, and so she kind of leads the Kupuna subgroup. So Audrey, I hand the mic over to you.
Thank you very much. Nice segue. So good afternoon, everyone. I'm Audrey Suganakagawa. I'm the Advocacy Director for AARP Hawaii, and I have been a member of the Broadband Hui along with a lot of my counterparts who are here actually in this Kupuna Caucus. And Britt really did a good job of laying out basically the overview of what the state is trying to do. But specifically for the Kupuna, we quickly recognize how important it is to really get this out there, to expand the access and usage among our senior population because of all the important reasons that we all know in regard to telehealth, communications, and getting access to vaccination and all the other information. And so we initially got together separately to look at how do we do this, and what kind of information do we need to provide specifically for the Kupuna population of our state. And we had some ideas about developing a resource directory that includes not only information that's applicable for all users, but specifically for those organizations that are working with the seniors. So there are groups like Lanakila Pacific, Catholic Charities, the Pear Suite, who have digital navigators who are providing one-to-one assistance. So we are putting together that resource directory and then also looking at a larger roadmap. Now, this was all organically being done by all of our members, volunteering, and I've been sort of leading all of this effort. But, it's really hard because we do have other work to do. But just this past few days, ARP National had issued a pilot project or grant award, and we decided to apply for it. And lo and behold, we got the money. And so literally, Senator Misalucha, when we were trying to meet with you, I had to go to that 12 o'clock meeting because they were giving us the award. And so now we have additional resources to expedite this process. And we are still in negotiations about how this would be, who's going to come on board to help us really focus and develop this. But this is the game plan. So we are going to be creating a digital inclusion roadmap specifically for Hawaii's Kupuna. We're using the model and plan that was developed by the city of Long Beach, a very, very modified version of it. But what it would include, it would be the asset mapping, identifying all the projects that are currently underway for seniors and for the general public. And also look at, where are the geographical areas? And we know that we're not going to reinvent anything that's already out there, but we're going to be incorporating the information from our GIS mapping from the Department of Education that identifies the physical locations of where there needs to be more connectivity. And then we also are going to identify our underserved population among the seniors, which means people who has English as a second language. They live in low-income housing, they're in rural communities, and trying to identify that. And finally, identifying the policies and public policies and proposed legislation that we can support in coming session and in the future, and also the projects and project and program needs. So when the federal funding comes forward or any opportunity come forward, we have the projects ready to roll out. So the timing is perfect. The timing that Bert has just laid out and how the federal legislation of the infrastructure is going to be rolling out may really work out perfectly with what this product is going to look like. So this plan, it's very ambitious. We are working with very few weeks to get this done. So we don't want to make overpromise that it's going to be extremely comprehensive, but we think that it is a good start as to what we're going to be having available so that it will be shared with our aging partners. And so if there is a funding opportunity and they say, hey, let's look at this and see what can we roll out quickly, we got it ready to go. So that's the idea behind of this particular roadmap. And I'm really excited. And again, the details are all, we're still working that out. Literally, I just got out of a meeting on this and I have to go back to another meeting in a few minutes, but we're going to be rolling this out. And we just want to tell our Kupuna partners to stay tuned because you are going to be engaged one way or another because we're going to need everyone's help.
That's great to hear. So
wonderful.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Audrey, for your leadership.
You're welcome.
And hopefully, yes, we'll stay tuned and we'll get an update from you coming up once you get everything formalized. I did want to turn it to Leigh. I know she had a lingering question, and then we'll turn it over to Rep. Martin for a question. And we're going to
I almost forgot what I was going to say. In a way, I'm a Kupuna. I'm older than Greg, much older than Greg. And you folks are talking in language sometimes that I don't quite understand because, and that's where I'm speaking from as a Kupuna, that when I was working, it was really
Alert
good
Doug
because-
Matsuoka has left the meeting. Alert Doug Matsuoka has joined the meeting.
In a way, when I was working, I had tech support. So they updated me and kept me apprised of what was happening. But being retired for a number of years, the language has changed. So some of the things you're talking about, I don't understand what they are. Like, for example, an app used to be called a program. Now they call it an app. So it took me a while to figure out what the heck that meant, okay? And my concern is that you can have as much access to the hardware and everything else, the broadband, but does the senior citizen know how to use it? And I find sometimes when I'm trying to do something with getting my driver license renewed or something, that the site that I go to for government is not sometimes user-friendly because I keep hitting the wrong buttons and going somewhere else. So I need help. So I found out the library is a good place. So anyway, I'm concerned that the technology language has improved, but the senior citizen that's retired that doesn't have tech support has not kept up with it. So I think folks have to simplify things, and that there are a lot of things happening for kupunas, but I'm not aware of it. So I'm wondering, where do they get this information? Now, I do not do social media, so because, well, there's a lot of reasons for it. And I had my email hacked about a year ago. So, and then when I got hacked, I didn't know what to do after that. And seniors are, as you know, a target. So it'd be good if there were to be kind of a help or tech help or something that you could call, that they can refer you. If they can't answer the question, they can refer you to the right agency or group or whatever that can help you. And
You have
that's what
a
I
short
was
answer, Bert?
Well, we do recognize that there's a need for, what we call digital navigators. And we're trying to, again, a lot of this is at the early stage. So we're trying to develop that capability and have the resource that helps to either talk somebody through the process or create some curriculum so that we can sort of train the trainer. But yeah, we do recognize that sometimes, oftentimes the technology moves so quickly and the lingo changes so quickly that, it's a challenge for people to kind of just keep up. So yeah, we have recognized that. It's a question of how do we pull together the resources that, make something like a digital navigator program really not only launch, but have the scalability that addresses, your needs and others.
So I think point well taken, Lei. I think that's something that hopefully they will take back and communicate to their group. But I think, translating that sometimes, hopefully Audrey plays that role in making sure that she advocates for
otherwise the specialists will all be speaking only to themselves.
That's right. Rep. Martin, I want to turn it over to you. Oh, you're on mute, Rep. Martin.
I was just saying, Lei, yes, I have trouble all the time as well. And then I was illustrating that point by forgetting to unmute. But so it's at all ages. We all need help with technology. It keeps changing on us. And I had a question for Bert. There's a lot of people in my community, especially in Waimanalo, that are very concerned about 5G and perceived health risks. And I just wonder if this is an issue that you come up against when you are trying to expand access to broadband and how you manage that.
So that's a great point. And we have actually tried to tackle that. And as of just recently, we were able to put together some graphics that help to more easily explain things like 5G. And so I am happy to, get that to you. Let's see, maybe I can find it in the next couple minutes. It's some graphics that, we have a 5G subgroup. The 5G subgroup actually met on the express purpose of trying to figure out how do we build some messaging collateral that would help people better understand what is involved with the 5G technology and the 5G rollout. So I'll go dig that up and I'll put it in the chat, and then you can check that out.
Yeah, and we can send that out as well if necessary. If you send that to us, Bert.
Yeah, let me do that real quickly.
Last question from Audrey.
Actually, it's not a question. I wanted to answer Lay's concerns and address her issue. And you're absolutely correct. The things that you mentioned, that's a common problem, not just for seniors, but everyone else. And so I know this doesn't answer it doesn't address your immediate needs, but this is the kind of things that we wanted to put in our resource directory, definitely a glossary just to define some of these terminology, because even for myself, I don't understand what all of this means, but also to identify where you can get some help. And so I just was having this conversation with Derek Ariyoshi from the Elderly Affairs Division, and he was exactly saying the same thing. But where do people go when they, in the midst of this, working on their computer, like, I don't know how to do this part, how do we get that kind of help? And so, these are pretty extensive projects, and we'd like to think about through it more, but we would like to put that into our data, the roadmap, because this is the kind of things that when there should be funding opportunities, we definitely should take this on and try to expand and develop a program for everybody. So that I just wanted to mention that.
Thank you, Audrey. Really appreciate it. And Bert looks like he put something in the chat. So if you want to check that out. iPhone, do you have something real quick? We're going to try and wrap up here. I don't know who the iPhone is. You're raising your hand.
Yeah, this is Donald Sakamoto. Bert, I got a question about the 5G. Somebody told me that when they use 5G, their cell phones, it uses a lot of battery on their 5G on their phones. So how can you address that situation with broadband if that happens?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. And right now, what happens is that again, my iPhone is an old iPhone 7, so I don't even catch 5G. And there aren't a whole lot of places that actually have 5G service. But if you are able to catch it, typically you would have like a Samsung phone or a iPhone. I think I forget the version, like 13, that is able to get the signal. Now, what they have said is that this is a manufacturer specification, and that they have optimized their battery and performance so that they wouldn't drain the battery. So it's kind of an issue around the manufacturer being able to accommodate access to 5G, and whether their phones, whether it's iPhones or Samsung phones, are able to operate on the same expected extended period of time. So again, it's a manufacturer issue. Now, in my case, and I'm just going to share the sob story with you. My iPhone 7 is so old that I think maybe the battery is starting to lose its effectiveness. So on a typical day, I almost have to keep my iPhone plugged in, or else it'll just start to decline in operational efficiency over the course of the day. So that's kind of more because of age.
That's what they want you to do. They want you to upgrade.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, I gotta upgrade. pretty soon.
So Bert, if anyone wants to get in touch with you, can you leave your email address?
Sure.
It's not necessarily personal tech support, but I think it's great to understand, right, what's going on and what are the new technologies coming up. And I think it's an exciting time. But I think Lay's point well taken, that it's something that we all need to make sure we educate everyone about. Educational piece is very important. So thanks so much, Bert, for spending time with us this afternoon. Really appreciate the insights and what's coming up. I think it's a very exciting time. And before we leave, I know Greg Tapakiyama, you have anything to leave with?
No, I don't have any words of wisdom. Just thank you very much, Troy. I think it was a very interesting discussion and very on point in terms of our Kupuna needs in this, modern society. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. And we'll see you next month. If you have anything that you feel like you want to have discussed, email it over to us, and we'll try and get it scheduled. And I think this is a great start for as we get prepared for the upcoming legislative session. So thanks, everyone. Have a great long weekend.